Linda, can you hear us?
How about now? Okay, now can you hear me?
Let me turn up. Can you hear me now, Linda?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Linda?
You can? Yes.
Because they have some business facilities.
Can you hear me now?
17.
Okay, it's just not, you gotta be right up on the speaker. So I'll make sure that I'm right up on the speaker. Yeah, okay. Okay. Yep, I will. All right, bye. Good afternoon, City Hall.
At the Putnam County School Board meeting room, 200 feet street black door. The meeting is open to the public, and the meeting is called to 5 p.m. The meeting will be in lieu of the regular meeting. Scheduled for 6 p.m. starts June 24th. The Zoom closed and then I need to listen to the regular business scheduled for 6 p.m. June 24th. And meeting with employees regarding wage concerns. Please have yourself more. This time, we're gonna have our pledge. Pledge of allegiance. I'm gonna ask Matt Leonard to lead us in the pledge. And Pastor Mulberry to lead us in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Pastor Mulberry, we're ready.
Father, we thank you. We thank you for your goodness towards us. We thank you for your loving kindness and for the multitude of your tender mercy. God, thank you for how you've been so good to us all day long. We pray, God, that you will bless this meeting as they come together, these men and women, to make decisions that affect and impact our city in certain areas in certain ways. Pray that you would guide the agenda setting on tonight. Let your glory be revealed in this setting, God. Speak to our minds and hearts. Give us what we need. And we'll praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Mayor Terrell Hill. Commissioner Tammy McCaskill. Commissioner Will Jones. Commissioner Justin Campbell. Commissioner Roosevelt Borum. All present and accounted for, and we have a quorum, Mayor. The proclamation reads as follows. Whereas on July 4, 1776, our founding fathers ratified the Declaration of Independence, a historic document declaring that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that we are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And whereas this document laid a foundation for future prosperity and helped establish a government based on individual liberties and the rule of law, which is society's sacred bond. And whereas as Americans, Floridians, and Palatkans, it is our duty to preserve the fundamental principles, freedoms, and liberties that have ensured the continued prosperity of our nation. And whereas Independence Day is an important opportunity to honor our brave servicemen and women who have defended our nation's enduring values, whom we can never thank enough for their courage and sacrifices. And whereas since 1870, the 4th of July has been recognized as a federal holiday so that Americans may celebrate our nation's timeless truths and great freedoms that call to our higher sense of patriotism. Now, therefore, I, Terrell Hill, Mayor of the City of Palatka, together with the members of the Palatka City Commission, do hereby endorse and proclaim July 4th, 2021 as Independence Day in the City of Palatka, and in recognition of our founding fathers of our great nation, and ask all residents to take time to celebrate the freedoms enshrined in our nation's founding, and ask all residents to honor those who protect our nation's independence. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the official seal of the City of Palatka this 24th day of June in the year of our Lord 2021.
emo certificates and Norris Leadership Academy. First up is FLC University Emo 1, Commissioner Will Jones. Read as follows. Emo FLC University Certificate of Completion, May 7th through 9th, 2021, and for Willie Jones, Commissioner, CF. Give a round of applause. And just so you know, officials, certificate of completion, April 23rd to 24th, 2021. They all be sure. Then to the honorable Richard J. Moore. Emo 2, certificate of completion, April 23rd to 24th, 2021. Daytona Beach, Florida, the honorable Tammy McCaffrey, Commissioner, CF. Next up, public comment. Public comment will be limited to 3 minutes. No action will be taken on topics of discussion. If you're here for public comment, you can fill out a yellow speaker's card, or you can use the YouTube chat function online, or dial 386-329-0100 extension 0. And the yellow cards are now white. First up is the Tanya Rules. Battles. Can't see. So, I'm sorry, Ms. Battles. This is what happens when you get close to it. So, Ms. Battles, I'm going to come up to your name and address. Come up to the podium.
Okay, so I wanted to just say that and bring it out.
That works.
Okay. All right, so I came before the board today, just to say briefly, I had an act of God on during Irma, and a tree fell through my house. And so when the tree fell through my house, I have been trying to get other assistance and whatever, but Earl, the other person that's on there, my ex-husband, he was approved for Rebuild Florida in December of 2020. But somebody made a complaint recently, and so we've been going back and forth with code enforcement about that. Today, I had a meeting at 1:30, and I am in violation because, you know, we moved the debris, we did things like that right there, but the tree is still in my house, of course. But Rebuild Florida, people say that they are going to help us, they're going to completely tear down my house and rebuild. However, right now, it started on, I think, May 19th. So we're at already, I found out today, $900 for last month up to this time. And then it'll be $750 per month going forward. So I just wanted to come and ask the board to just consider my situation. I am working with Rebuild Florida. I've already been accepted. We're, you know, I have the information. I've submitted it. I just need help in that area. Yes.
Just say clean. So she needs help with saying that we know Mr. Holmes or Councilman. I'll take it.
And at this point, I think it's premature. We gave her 60 days and she really had 90 days in order to correct the situation. So it's an ongoing thing. So I think it's premature at this time to make a consideration for staying with review of reduction.
Any questions?
Oh, actually, she had 90 days. Yes, ma'am. She was initially, yes, she passed the 90 days as well. When she came before the board, it's like 90 days.
Is your documentation from about before that?
I did not see.
You have any documentation?
Yes, I've already submitted it to the Rebuild Florida. I did bring that information.
You have to make sure that they have it. Yeah. Go ahead. The problem has been that actually when the case first started, got right and correct me if I'm wrong. When the case was first brought, the action that she was advised she could take in order to avoid a lien beginning was simply to have Regal Florida commit to a time when they would do something at the park. Didn't have to have it done, didn't have to accomplish anything other than having Rebuild Florida say, yes, and we're going to do it at a certain time, and that no time frame was given. It could be whenever. 90 days went by, and Rebuild Florida still would not commit to the time frame of when they would get the tree out of the house. Meanwhile, the property's actually been there, as she said, in this condition since Irma. So that's going back now, what, 4 years. So you have a condition that's been in existence for 4 years. Finally, a complaint was made by somebody. We didn't go find this one. It was the conditions that are there. The violation was found to exist, but she was given 90 days just to get Rebuild Florida or somebody to say, we're going to fix it sometime. Just give us a date. Any date, just tell us. And in 90 days, that hasn't happened. And so what we did tell her, I have been conversing with Mr. Cutler about this, was, okay, the fine's going to start, but understand that we're not going to take any action to foreclose on any lien or anything of that nature. And if at some point in the future, Rebuild Florida comes in and does what they say they're going to do, then I was quite certain that in accordance with our procedure, she could come before the board and ask for a lien reduction. Right now, there hasn't, one of our premises that you agreed to in the policy was you wouldn't consider a lien reduction until the condition had been remedied. And this condition hasn't been remedied. This condition still exists. Mr. Keller, does that say something that misstates the position of the department?
Mr. Cutright, could you please come to a microphone? Certainly.
Why did you say that?
It was too comical. Yeah, we have had several conversations and we have had several emails with the company, and every email still does not state when they're going to try to do or try to put the work in place. They said they got it, they're tracking, but their workload is kind of backlogged, so they have no date of when they're going to try to do anything.
I've been working with them, trying to just get a deadline, you know what I mean? Something that I can take back to court when code enforcement to say, if I'm gonna do that. I know that all of this is happening and, the market and lumber and all of this stuff right here, but all I'm in is building design area. I can't get anybody to commit to that, so I'm just kind of like, first year, and I did, let them know that I am in violation. So I want to say that.
So you met with Rebuild about the design of your home and all of that? So
No, I haven't. I'm waiting on, they said that they gotta get like a contractor, to come out. They've surveyed the land, did all of that, but right now they say it's called, I think it's Design Services. That's where Mr. Knight, Mr. Green and different ones have spoken to him, but that's where it's kind of like, that's where it is.
So when is she here? Is she here about
Today.
Today.
she said to go back again? So she has another to come back once. If it gets cleared. So you have the ability to come back before the code enforcement board, once you get some additional information. If you want, contact, I know Mr. Green and Mr. Cutright have been in touch with Rebuild Florida. I can check with Kerry Davis, who actually worked on that project with this one we rebuilt in initially. And so I can check with them and see if maybe they got an inside contact who can give you some better information. So if you can leave your information, Mr. Cutright, out, and I'll check with them and see if I can find out something else.
I mean, they have the information that they have, I have been given. I'm just concerned about those speeds going on and on.
You have the ability to come back and ask for reductions once you get into compliance. So at this point, you got a commitment from staff saying they're not going to push for foreclosure, understand the circumstances at this point. So you'll be fine as it relates to what's in place now. Any other comments from the commission? And so that's where we are. So I'll get that information. If you guys contact me, that's that. Reach back out.
Thank you.
Back to the cards, and there's more specific items, so we'll move to those later. Anyone else in YouTube chat? Is there anything in YouTube chat?
Linda, your mic is muted.
Not at this time.
See nothing in YouTube chat. We're going to close public comment. We'll move on to item 4 of the agenda, which is our consent agenda, items A through P. Are there any items on the consent agenda that you wish to have removed at this time?
And just have these covered another way on
Are there any other items besides item E on the agenda?
Did you exclude item Q, that's also part of the consent agenda? You said through P.
I see repeat on my agenda. Yeah. I don't have a Q. Do you have a Q?
I have a Q.
I don't have one.
There was an item that was removed from the consent agenda midway through last week. So those of you that have an additional item, you may be seeing an old agenda that didn't have, there was one item that was removed.
One second, point clarity. So on the agenda, items A through P.
No, it's not.
It was an item midway through the agenda. Ms. Tucker, can you speak to that? Which item was removed and why? It was an item Q. It was in the middle.
I'll make a motion that we accept that consent agenda as it is written in letter N for discussion.
Motion for a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried unanimously. Moving to item N, about resolution 2021 R79, authorizing a raise grant application in the amount of $8,176,001.80.
Yes, so the Department of Transportation puts out a national grant annually. Originally it was called the Tiger, which renamed the bill. Now it's called the RAISE. It's an infrastructure grant. So this is geared towards water lines improvements, street resurfacing, sidewalks, crossings, and I'm going to let Mr. Fred speak to that area.
So as you may recall, one of the most recent grant awards we got was for disaster recovery and development block grant. Opportunity. That was in the the general area of North 14th Street, Washington, North 13th Street, over on the north side of town. So what we've done here is we've taken some of those user potable phases, wrapped them into that same area so that we can kind of stack some of those capital funding and do more. Generally, it's from the North 19th Street area up to the railroad tracks, back down to Madison, all the way back to 11th. And we've included some areas along St. John's Avenue that are currently not funded, from the railroad tracks back to Mosley, bounded by St. John's Avenue and Reed Street, and a few side roads in the downtown area. So it's a very large project, but what we're trying to do is just make the dollar go a little bit farther. The only match that we have is what we've already had committed from other outside funding sources.
And then, we're asking for 100%. Within the application, we're asking for 100%. They have the right to not grant that, but we wouldn't know that. So,
Any other questions? Entertain a motion.
motion is the item.
The motion on the floor, second by Commissioner Jones. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries unanimously. Moving on. Item 5, budget transfer from reserves for Jenkins Gymnasium. Ms. Shank, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
I can.
Give me 1 second if I could, just for informational purposes. Ms. Shank could have been here tonight, but she has an emergency, a health emergency that necessitates her not being present. So she's appearing by that.
Thank you. So what we've done is we're going to be pulling $50,000 out of reserves. I do want to note that the amount of reserves does not reflect the most recent audited financials number. Our reserve of unassigned fund balance and general fund is actually 3.3 million. So even with the 2 agenda items that if you approve this one as well, will still leave us with $3.2 million in reserves. For the Jenkins item, what we did was we actually just took preliminary numbers that we had received and lined them up in a new department that is specifically for the Jenkins Gymnasium, similar to what we do with some of our other properties like Price Martin. It has its own department within Community Affairs. Do you have any questions about the line items themselves?
The recommended percentage is 16%. As of last week, we were roughly at 30%.
Correct. We're at 34% and GAP recommends 16%. So we are still above the recommended balance of reserves. Sunny, can you mute John?
Muted.
Any other questions for Ms. Shank? So one of the other things I will foreshadow is based upon certain occupancy that may be in place, and they need from a life safety standpoint, depending on what the determinations are, to come back and talk about the need for sprinkler systems possible, depends on what the determinations are in the future. And so those are all things that are out there. We wanted to make sure out of full disclosure that those things were put in place. Something we discussed in the last meeting, but we'll know more.
That is correct. I did not include any major capital outlay items. as I put in the agenda item, if there were to be any major renovations or upgrades that needed to be done immediately, we would return back to the commission for guidance.
Any questions? Not, I would have a motion. Motion to approve. Motion for the second by Mr. Henry. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Discussion and direction concerning employee wages. At this time, turn it over to Mr. Holmes to lead the discussion. As you all are aware, last month we came in the conversation as it pertains to where we are from a wage standpoint, taking certain actions. And I'm going to get started out with just an update of what's transpired since the last meeting. And then we'll continue.
Since the last meeting, and directed from the commission, we did in a panel, a task force consisting of representatives of each department who were selected by the department and were not the department supervisors or heads. We have had one meeting basically for the purpose of essentially just setting the stage for where we will be headed. We did, of course, allow and entertain any comment that anyone wanted to make, but I don't think there were a lot of surprises. The issue is wages that the employees universally discussed as being a problem. However, in handling that meeting and having an introductory session will be important because there's going to be a relatively quick turnaround and need for some meetings under the with a group that's going to be doing the job classification and compensation study that was approved under the consent agenda. And that task force will be a good starting place for that group to meet with. They'll end up meeting with all the employees in one form or another, but that task force will be a good place for them to begin. So with that in mind, you had at the last meeting invited the employees to come and express their feelings to you about their situations, salary-wise and other working conditions, whatever they wish to speak of, as we look into the possibility of trying to avoid the turnover that we've had in recent years, attract employees and retain them, and essentially provide and produce a more satisfied and efficient workforce. We had brief discussions during the task force meeting in which I suggested that even though emotions can run high in matters of this type, that it was going to be helpful for everybody concerned if everyone remember that we're all on the same team and you are concerned and sensitive to the problem they face. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing. And so conversations would be welcome, but anger and anything other than a courteous conversation or presentation would probably be counterproductive. So with that in mind, we can, from my perspective, I think we want to do. I'll bring that to you, Mayor.
Okay. One of the things that we want to do, we want to make sure we hear from everybody who has a comment that we want to bring forward at this time. We spent a significant amount of time in the last meeting. It's mostly public works. There were some other individuals from various departments throughout talking about the variances in salaries and the differences across the area. And so tonight we've got representatives from different departments here. So from public works, will you stand up for me just for a second? So we can recognize everybody from the department standpoint. Thank you guys for being here. Fire department. Uniform.
That's because I'm off, Mr. Mayor.
Never,
home.
you're never okay. PPD. Community affairs. We also want to welcome our new planner. If you want to come up and introduce yourself to everybody, let's give her a round of applause.
Hi, everybody. I'm Ms. Walsh. Mentioned, and I spent 20 years working in different municipalities, in cloud, Grant County, and also very experienced, and I'm very thankful to be here.
You're definitely welcome aboard, and we're excited to have you here. She's already hit the ground running. HR. She's a little older than you are in the city government right now, so. Finance is on. We got any other folks from the finance department in the room tonight? City admin, clerk's office. We've got a good mix of people here, but more than anything, it's an opportunity for us, and we don't want to not take the time to hear from you. I know there's got to be at least one firefighter who's going to come up here and talk to me today. Who's the spokesperson for the fire union?
Mayor, can I make one more announcement to the employees? So I want everyone to take notice of the fact that, as we discussed during the task force meeting, the commission did in fact move forward to commission a study by the recommended group whose task it will be to perform a salary and compensation study and also draft a new personnel policy for the city of Palatka, with an emphasis on getting us back information on the salary and compensation survey within the next 30 days. That was one of the conditions of our RFP, was they move quickly so that we wouldn't miss this budget cycle. So 3 responses were submitted to the RFP that we submitted. An evaluation committee met. We selected a respondent that we believe has a lot of experience and can offer a lot of expertise in our efforts to make sure that our job classifications adequately describe the work each of you are doing, so that we can then compare that work and that job classification with others in the competitive field. And so that we can then come back to the commission with an understanding of where we stand in relation to those that are also doing the same thing that we're doing. And the commission can then move from that point. So that is a huge step that hadn't been taken before, to my knowledge, as the city attempted to see where its workforce is, where its wages and where its compensation and benefits packages were. So I just wanted to let you know that did happen tonight already. And we talked about the fact that it's going to be on the agenda, and it has happened.
Okay. Captain Bradford, come on. When you come up, just give your name and department you're with. So we'll have it for the record. And so also, so that they can hear, for those who are listening online, kind of put the mic pretty close to you so that, or you can pick it up either way. I'm sorry.
Mr. Greer,
Yes.
we can also, if you guys would also speak into you guys' mics, we could probably hear you a lot clearer as well. I noticed when you and Don sit up in your mics, we can hear you guys a lot clearer also.
Got you, Commissioner, and welcome on board as well to our police pension. Got the pleasure of having 2 former commissioners in the room, one in Cyberland, James Norwood, who just came on board on our police pension board, and Liberty Kitchens, who's also in the room. So it's always great to have you guys here. And I still call you commissioners, so you're commissioners emeritus. So Captain Bradford, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate you having me. I like
appreciate y'all. Chad Branford, City of Palatka Fire Department, 17 years July. I'm not taking the union position. I did not carry as the union guy. So I just want to give a little perspective from a ship commander, captain who runs the crew. So like I said, I've been here 17 years July. It's been a career so far. I'm very thankful. I want to give a little perspective as a ship commander. My point of view, I lead a crew of 6 guys, 6 members for day-to-day operations. When we're full, there's seven people available for the initial response inside the city limits. Unless we've got a person off on vacation, then we're 6, which is significantly lower than most departments around us. They run a bigger. I say that because that means we demand a lot from our people. Our probationary period is a year. There's a skills task book that must be completed. A 7 and an 11-month probationary test for these guys to be considered. The newest members, they're important to us. The cost of uniforms, PPE, initial training, it's expensive. Those are reasons enough to try and keep them. But I wanted to talk about the guys in the middle, the 3 to 10 year guys. When we lose those guys, it hurts. We lose those members, that's a hit to our department. The fire service is an accumulation of runs over years. No 2 calls are the same. So it takes years and years to build a knowledge base, and experience. When you lose those guys, 3-year, 4-year, 5-year guys, it makes all of us less safe, no doubt about it. You take as a shift commander, you take a brand new guy that's driving, he's doing the best he can, he's only seen so much, so it takes time. It's experiences, lieutenants, the same way. So that matters to crew safety and integrity. It takes time to build a crew. I can't speak for the rest of the departments because I don't know how they operate. I wouldn't even dare try and stand in their shoes. I can only speak to what I know about. So I just want to give you a little bit about your investment, what I call your investment. Our initial guys, their initial investment is about 480 hours for minimum standard, about 320 hours for MP. That's what they bring to the table, most guys, when they come. But when we get them, we demand hazmat technician, which is 160 hours, that's a basic minimum standard. We also demand what's called urban search and rescue, which is 5 disciplines: road, confined space, trench, collapse, vehicle machinery rescue. Those are all 40 hours. When you combine them, total about 180 hours. And then technician, it'd be another 180 hours on top of that. So it's a ton of initial training just to get these guys to a place where they can operate in a crew as a team, as a part of the team. And you guys know that we serve a huge industrial community here. So the chance is real. There are also other things: inspectors, 200 hours, instructors, 40 hours. I mean, the list goes on. So I say all that because surrounding departments, that makes our guys valuable. We train them. They know it. Departments around us know we train them. We train them second and our standards are high. These other departments, they see our applications come across the table, they hire them. And we start all over. We've got to figure out a way to take care of them if we're going to keep them. You guys know that, but I really appreciate the opportunity to stand in front of you.
I just think the biggest thing is the insights, the sharing of the hours of training. I think for a lot of folks who sit out in the audience as well, people who work in various capacities don't necessarily understand what some of those trainings are. Most of those in-service trainings, or are they, how are they? No, sir, most of those are state certified required classes. So for example, pump operator, to drive for this department, to be a qualified pump operator, that position has 80 hours. You'll have a certification, he takes a cert test, passes his test, he gets his state certification, he can move forward. It's the same way with fire inspector. Most of those classes require not annual, but continuing education units. At some point, 45 hours for inspector, instructor, live fire training instructor. And just to kind of reiterate what we've seen the trend of folks going to the county as well as the surrounding counties that are above their salaries over the last year to 2 years or so. We've seen even more movement. So just wanted to make sure we pointed that out as well. Yes, sir. And so, Chief, that's a quick question for you, your captain. As it relates to training a new officer, if we lose somebody, have you put a cost on that?
I believe we're around $3,000 to $4,000. That's just for those officer classes. That doesn't include the stuff that.
Doesn't include equipment or anything else.
All these other classes that he spoke on are going to be required as well. So that's a whole other group of classes.
Just in that, there's what they call company officer series, fire officer 1 and 2.
Sorry, fire officer 1 and 2, company officer series. I didn't want to run down the whole list, but there's hundreds of hours that we require as a department to promote, to move, to progress.
So the trainings that the city of Palatka has, is it any different from any other department, the state, the county per se, or would it be any different between any other municipality? The trainings that you have, would they, any other fighters for those roles would need to have those trainings or not?
So I would say this, I think I understand. These are all fire service classes, but our department is small. So when you carry most days 6 people on an initial response, you want those guys to be as highly trained as you can, because we're not bringing 10 or 15. We can't put them out. We can't run these calls with mass numbers if we don't have them. So we train them up. We require them to be highly trained and smart, so that we can do it with less people. That's my perspective. And the other thing is, if you look at, I think it was clear when we did the interview for chief, one of the common things that came out of that was that lack of firefighters have carried more certifications than the average firefighter in the area, who may be on the same level. And so that's one of the things that's out there is we go over beyond when it comes to training, and no different than what happens with our police department. And so those are all things that we have to be conscious of, because we don't want to be a training ground for anyone else.
Yes, sir. Part of the issue is that for many years, until just recently, the county didn't have anyone but volunteers, so we could not depend on them in any way. We couldn't depend on them to come to help us. We couldn't depend on them for ISO rating, none of those things. So we had to have people who could deal with hazmat. We have a railroad that runs right to the center of our city that carries all the dangerous chemicals that you can name, along with the trucks that come through here on 17 and 19 through 20. So we have to have that skill level so that we don't get ourselves killed. And like you said, back to the idea, there's just no help coming for us. If we call for Clay County, you're looking at 45 minutes to 2 hours. You call for St. Johns County, you're talking about 45 minutes to 2 hours. After they assemble their team. So it's going to take some time. And back to Mr. Warren's question, we have to make sure that we can cover all those bases and get our people trained to that level. Otherwise, we're putting ourselves at huge risk.
Any comments from the commission?
I just want to thank you guys for coming here, sharing that, and also, you got to mention that you're on ISO 2 rating and whatever, and I think I'm achieve the one. You guys always doing extensive training, and people that come out of your program, they're elite. And it has demonstrated that throughout a number of different things with the services y'all provide, not only with Palatka, but
other places in the county, so.
Yes, sir. We can be the sport, we can be deployed as a state asset too for hurricanes and other disasters. If you guys heard the news, building collapse in Miami.
Right.
That's something that we're trained to do. We have some of the tools and all the skills. We would definitely need help from someone, but that's an operation that goes on for days. Sometimes we would call for help, but we would still have people that can get started.
You mentioned in-service training. You spoke about us, so you mentioned in-service training. I don't know if you guys know, there's 192 hours of in-service training per year per member that's required by ISO for us to maintain our current. So that's like the daily trainings that you see us out. You don't see us out flow checking hydrants, flow testing. Fire inspections are part of that with pre-appointments. Those kind of things.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else from the fire department? You can't come up. Lombard.
Hey, good evening.
Give your names, everybody, give your name for record.
Engineer Steve Barker. I've got two things here. I do have one statement from the union for the secretary that's written a statement. I'd like to go ahead with my personal one first. That's all. So 15 years ago, in May of 2006, I found Flag on the map after a friend of mine told me the city of Flag was hiring for firefighter positions. When I arrived and discussed with him my interests, one of the amazing things I remembered was how the city took care of its employees financially. I could see year after year a substantial raise of 5% was included for almost all the city employees. I was set to make, after 10 years of employment, $55,000 a year. I personally stopped looking anywhere else to work at this point. My first year raise came, and I could see with 100% transparency, the city had agreed to continue that trend. I was able to acquire my first home within the next year after seeing the substantial raise. The knowledge that the place I worked for was promising to continue raising my wages to gain people with experience and maintain the desire to create tenure. This same experience with the city of Palatka was happening across the country. Fast forward to 2008, the economic crash occurred. Fire departments went on hiring freezes and raises were sequestered. City municipalities went on financial lockdowns, scrambling to find ways to continue supporting their employees, retirement plans, and current wages. I watched the last 13 years come extremely short for myself and others around me financially. Many of my colleagues in surrounding counties, starting in the same time frame, now easily make $10,000 to $15,000 more a year as their employers have found ways to move forward with paying their employers for their experience and longevity they have committed to their city or county municipality. Me personally, I had to refinance my house 3 times to stay afloat, and I was one of the few who refused to walk away from my dreams of continuing home ownership during this time. It took 10 years for that same house to have enough equity for me to finally make the decision to become a citizen in Putnam County. I've been offsetting the wages I make here during this time with side jobs, odd jobs, and promotion to keep myself thinking positively that better wages are coming. I love what I do, and of course, most firefighters will tell you they started working in this field not only for the money, as it is a very rewarding job to do what we can for the community. I've always felt that way. Problem now is that we've come to this point where a major roundtable discussion is necessary citywide involving wages. One promotion and 15 years later, I still make under what a non-promoted firefighter makes after his 10 years of employment, which is once guaranteed. What I'm really hoping to see come out of this discussion today is real numbers, real wage increases, real timelines, transparency, all that work for the city of Palatka. We can no longer hope and wait that it's our year to see financial security increase in a way that builds upon the trust of all people, make this city to be the best in Putnam. Integrity, morale, consistent services, efficient services come from people that put years of experience and knowledge into the place they work. Those employees have to be taken care of, and the need for this to happen is now. That's for me. This one was written by our secretary, Kenneth Reed. Good evening, Mayor Hill and Commissioners. I would like to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. Hopefully this will give more information on why we all are here. Obviously, we're here because of pay. We want to give a little more information
In 1994, the starting firefighter pay was $9.31 an hour. Now think back to 1994. What was the cost of a new vehicle, a house for rent, groceries, gallon, gas, and utilities? I'll jump forward 26 years later, 2021. Firefighter hourly rate is $12.20. So in 26 years, the firefighter hourly rate increased $2.89. Now let's think about what the cost of a new vehicle, house, rent, groceries, gallon, gas, and utility costs. On average, every firefighter has ran out of money before they can pay for rent, utility, and gas to get to work, and that is based on rent and utilities in Palatka. We depend on government assistance, second and third jobs, and the help from significant others just to make it projected check. When you start a career, that career should be able to support your basic needs without having to work multiple jobs. That $2.89 increase only gives an extra $161.84 per week for taxes and deductions. National data shows from 2010 to 2021 a 21.22% inflation rate. That averaged 1.92% per year over that 11-year period. Significantly higher percentages are being projected out to 2026 with the increase in the minimum wage that is coming. So that being said, since annual pay raises stopped back in 2000, 2008, the rate of inflation has grown more than the rate of pay. It's safe to say that we've fallen behind. The employees of the city of Palatka should be seen as a career, not a job. Employees should be more valuable than buildings or properties. Let's face it, without the employees, the buildings or property will not be taken care of, services cannot be rendered. Now, I want to give some Palatka Fire Department employee facts. As you all probably know, we work 24 hours on and 48 hours off. So basically, we work 1 day on and 2 days off. So with a little math, we work roughly 10 shifts a month. Multiply that by 12, it equals 2,880 hours worked. That includes no overtime. General employees work 40 hours a week, and we give that by 52 weeks. General employees work, and general work employees work 2,080 hours per year. Fire department employees work on average 800 hours more per year than the general employees. To become a firefighter in the state of Florida, you must be a high school graduate, complete 486 hours of minimum years, and 300 hours of EMT, which include clinical and ride-along. That's what gets you in the door to become a Palatka Fire Department employee. But we don't stop at this point. As you know, Palatka Fire Department has an ISO 2, which is a huge and difficult function. What we might not know is that what is required to keep that 2 rating. Employees are one of the big keys to keeping that ISO rating. We guarantee a certain number of firefighters to respond to all fires. All of those firefighters must complete 308 hours of training annually to keep our ISO 2 rating. Palatka Fire Department officers must also complete an additional 36 hours of in-service training on top of 308 hours for the total of 344 hours. All of that are just for the ISO, not other state license requirements. For EMT paramedic, live fire safety inspector, fire service instructor, and live fire instructor certifications require more training hours, most of which require 40 to 55 hours per certification. Also, a job requirement for all of the Palatka Fire Department employees is to become USAR and hazmat certified as soon as the classes become available. USAR is another 183 hours just for operations. Hazmat is 160 hours. Because our department is so small, that is no separate fire prevention division. We also require officers to become fire life safety inspectors, which has a state certification license. Those licenses also have to be recertified. To become a fire life safety inspector, you have to take 5 45-hour classes for a total of 225 hours. To add to the stress of those hours, you must pass the state examination. If you do not pass the state exam, you must retake all the classes. You must recertify every 4 years of 45 hours total. Palatka Fire Department has been repositioned short for almost 2 years now. 2 years now. For last year, we have been as short as 4 to 5 people. The problem with that is we have a minimum staffing of 6 per shift. Of those 6, 2 must be officers of appropriate rank. So being short-staffed, like we are, there's a lot of overtime because we must have 6 per shift. We start a 24-hour shift at 800 hours, and plan getting to go home at 800 hours the next morning. Due to the short staffing and the abundant amount of overtime, everyone is burnt out on working so many hours that no one takes the overtime voluntarily. So that means a revolving list of mandatory overtime is used. So instead of getting to go home to your family, you get to work another 24 hours for a total of 48 hours straight. What most don't realize is that when you finally get off after 48 hours, is when you get to go home. When you get to go home, you have less than 24 hours before you must return back for another tour of duty. So basically, you have to work 2 days and you see your loved ones for only 1 day. The other side of that is that there are still things that need to be completed. When we are off, and depending on how that 40-hour shift went, depends on just how exhausted this might make that we might become. Nothing is worse than a busy 40-hour shift and coming home to a child who has missed their parent and all you want to do is sleep. All of this plus what we have to deal with on calls leads to a higher probability of developing PTSD. A study of 4,000 first responders found that 86% of first responders had experienced critical stress, either from a critical single incident that had a significant impact or from accumulation over a period of time. Suicide attempts were roughly 10 times greater than the national average for American adults. A 2015 study of firefighters showed 19.2% had suicidal plans, 15.5% made suicide attempts, 16.4% made non-suicidal self-injuries. So to put that in our perspective, with current 22 employees, 4.2% have had suicide plans on that, and that is very concerning. On top of PTSD is cancer. There's been a lot of numbers thrown out there in regards to cancer. Here's just a little bit from the Firefighter Cancer Support Network. Facts are firefighters have a 9% higher risk of being diagnosed with cancer and 14% higher risk of dying from cancer than the general U.S. population, according to the NIOSH study results. Cancer was likely responsible for this higher risk for respiratory, gastrointestinal, and kidney. The NIOSH researchers did also report a twofold excess of malignant mesothelioma, very rare cancer. Put another way, firefighters have a 100% increased risk of getting mesothelioma. Firefighters have a 129% increased risk of dying from mesothelioma. Here are some other cancers currently affecting firefighters: testicular cancer, multiple melanoma, non-Hodgkin's, skin cancer, malignant melanoma, brain cancer, prostate cancer, colon cancer, and leukemia. Almost every Palatka Fire Department employee knows a firefighter either active or retired has or will, or is currently dealing with cancer. I'll close with this. Morale at the Palatka Fire Department is low as it has been. There are many factors for that, and pay and understaffed leads to that. When a possible new hire sees the listings, don't even apply. You cannot even count the number of applicants that have completed the written and physical test along with the interview to just turn down the job because they find out about the pay. All of the information tonight was presented so you can really know and understand how much it costs the Palatka Fire Department to lose an employee to surrounding fire departments.